Alright, today we're going to talk about differences between an air shifter using air and an air shifter using CO2. First, let's talk about regular air shifter and see what the system usually consists of. First, we got a bottle, then we have a air shifter cylinder, air shifter solenoid, engine kill box connected to the air shifter solenoid, switch connected to the engine kill box, pressure gauge, air pump, switch connected to the air pump, air line connected from the bottle to the pressure gauge. We have a air line connected to the air pump and to the bottle. Then we have an air line connected to going from the bottle to the air shifter solenoid. And last, we have a air line going from the air shifter solenoid to the air shifter cylinder. Okay, next let's see how the system operates. First, we use an air pump to pump the pressure into a bottle. We measure the pressure with pressure gauge connected to the bottle. For this example, let's say we're going to pump it up to 120 psi. When we see 120 psi on the pressure gauge, we turn off the air pump and we're ready to go. When you want to make a gear change, you use a switch connected to the engine kill box to let the engine kill box that we're ready to upshift. The engine kill box then sends current to the air shifter solenoid, which opens up air shifter solenoid, so the pressured air from the bottle is able to travel to the air shifter cylinder. And the air shifter cylinder is connected to the transmission linkage. So then the engine kill box kills the engine and air shifter cylinder is able to make a shift to the next gear. Everything works pretty good, but there is a downside to that. When you make a couple of shift points, or the more shifts you make, the more air you use that's in the bottle. So the pressure will drop. You'll start with 120 psi, and by the time you need to make a gear change to 6th gear, you might have maybe 80 psi. The force that the air shifter cylinder is applying to the transmission linkage is proportional to the pressure that's in the system. What that means is that it's going to apply more force at 120 psi when you're making a first upshift, and it's going to apply less force to the transmission linkage when the pressure drops to, let's say, 80 psi. It's going to make the gear changes inconsistent. It could end up being a problem. It could put more wear and tear on the transmission. Second problem with this is you constantly, every time you need to make a pass, you turn on the air pump to pump up the pressure to the bottle. The problem with this is that every time I've been to the racetrack, there's always somebody with the air pump going bad. They're not really reliable, and once the air pump burns up, you can't use an air shifter because you have no way of pumping the air into a bottle. Third problem with this is every time you pump the air into a bottle, the air is humid, so it has some water in it. After you pump air into a bottle a bunch of times, water end up collecting in the bottle. So you end up having moisture, which goes to the air shifter solenoid and air shifter cylinder, pressure gauge, pretty much everywhere. Not really good. It can corrode the air shifter solenoid and air shifter cylinder and decrease their life. So that's not very good. Fortunately, it's really easy to convert air shifter to CO2. All you have to do is you have to take out the pressure gauge, take out the air pump that fails anyway. You put a bottle with the CO2 in it, which is usually around 900 psi, so it has a lot more pressure in it. So it's going to last a lot longer, usually in the neighborhood of between 200 and 400 shifts. Then you put a regulator in line between the bottle and an air shifter solenoid. You can buy regulators that are adjustable, or you can buy regulators that are already preset for a certain pressure. What that does is that it sends constant pressure to the air shifter cylinder, so the force that the air shifter cylinder applies to the transmission linkage is always the same, which makes it a lot easier to tune your engine kill box to make precise shift points, which is going to put less wear and tear on the transmission. It can possibly make your it will make your bike more consistent, and it gets rid of all the moisture out of the system, so your air shifter solenoid and your air shifter cylinder is going to last longer.